Well, hello and welcome to the Wine and Wisdom Show, everyone. Thank you for being here on a Wednesday night. For those of you in Sydney, there may be a few wines in commiseration of our further restrictions tonight, but we can have them together. And you know what? That is what this show is all about. You might think it's about wine and wisdom because that's what we've called it. But in fact, it's all about connection, and the opportunity to connect, I think, is one thing that we've all learned over these last 15, 16 months is so important to us as humans, for us to have, some joy and to feel some warmth in our hearts and putting a smile on our face. That connection is what we can rely on. So for those of you who are here for the very first time tonight, thank you very much for being here. And for those of you who are returning, I love to see your comments and see your smiley faces come up. So thank you very much. And what am I doing? Cheers to you all for the Wine and Wisdom Show. I have felt very lucky throughout my lifetime that I have been connected with some incredible people, some courageous and resilient self-leaders who are making incredible differences across our globe in small ways and big ways. And I think, this is what this whole show is about, to not only share them with you, to connect with you over a little wine or two, but also to share the wisdom of the incredible humans that are out there doing some amazing things. And tonight, let me tell you, we have got a guest who truly is amazing, and he is sprinkling amazingness across our globe. I'm going to introduce you to him in a minute. But before I do that, what I'd like to do is acknowledge all the traditional custodians and elders spread across the many lands that we are all located on tonight. I'm personally coming to you from the lands of the Birrabirragal people. I'm in the area of Birch Grove, Balmain in Sydney. And I pay my respects to all the traditional owners who have nurtured and protected this wonderful country. My gosh, this wonderful country that we all get to work, live and play in. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to now bring you with our amazing guest for tonight. His name is Andrew Griffiths, and the man has written 14 books. 14! I've written one, and that just sat everything out of me. He's written 14 books, one in lockdown last year, and we're going to talk about that a little later tonight. But the whole night is about turning adversity into advantage. So I often think that people look at successful people, someone who has written 14 books, and think life's been really easy for him. Look at him. He's written 14 books. Gosh, he can do it, but I can't do that. My life's tricky. But in fact, that's not always the case. So we're going to unpack that a little bit tonight and learn how Andrew has actually turned the adversities that he's had in his world into an advantage. And I'm going to bring him up right now rather than just keep talking about him. Hello, Andrew. Welcome to the Wine and Wisdom Show.
Hello, Heidi. Hello to everyone who's tuning in, listening to a recording or trying to figure out how to turn us off. What's going on? Where's that noise coming from?
Someone's going to want to turn us off. What are you talking about? Hello, exactly. Magdalene. Thank you for being here. And we know, Andrew, I've got, as usual, a buttery Chardonnay. Those who know me know I love a buttery Chardonnay. Andrew's got a similar looking glass, haven't you? It's a similar shape.
It is. It's tragic. I'm drinking ginger tea, which kind of says it all, really, doesn't it? Right? It's like I hang my head in shame as I
do not have
to. It's like that. But anyway, well, I'm drinking wine with you in spirit.
Thank you for doing that. And I would hate for anyone to come on this show to feel like they had to have wine. But, it does make me feel like, I'm the one with the problem. So I would love to know, for those of you who are watching, what have you got in your glass? Have you got a red wine, a white wine, a bubbles, a beer, a G&T, a whiskey? Make me feel like I'm not the only one sipping away by myself tonight, if you could. That would be wonderful. Andrew, I would love to start off the night with you actually introducing yourself in your way and telling us about this incredible work that you are sprinkling around the globe. Could you do that for us, please, to start off?
Sure. I think the thing that I'm most known for, of course, is writing books. And as you kindly said, Heidi, 14 books on how to do business better. So, and I've been writing books for 22 odd years. It wasn't what I've done all of my life, but I wrote a book about marketing, and I was really lucky. I got it published, and that kind of changed my life more than anything else. And since then, of course, writing books, and you do the speaking, and I coach people. What I like to say is I like to work with people of substance to help them build business as a substance, and that's my kind of tagline that I use on that. And I teach people to write books now. I've helped 750 people to write books. Their first book, which is something that's probably the thing I'm most proud of in my kind of little brag bag, is so many people that I've helped to write their first books, and teach people to be speakers and do a whole range of different things along those lines. So it's become such a part of all of that's become such a part of my life over the last 20 odd years. It's just normal now. So so I'm very blessed to work with wonderful people and get to do kind of cool things with cool people in cool places.
And I think, people really fear and think, they're not authors. They don't have the capacity to put words to paper and tell their story or share their wisdom. And there is incredible people all over the place who, of course, we all want to learn from them. And like to have someone to facilitate that opportunity. I mean, I didn't know that you did that, and perhaps that would have changed things for me, but I had a great facilitator when I was writing my book, and their entire thing was about, you've got a story to tell, share it with the world. And if you can impact the life of one person, far out, that's all we need to do, right? If you impact positively the life of one person.
It's interesting because, again, working with people who have never written a book before and trying to help them to overcome the things that stop you from writing, because people are fascinated. It's still up there in the top 10 things that pretty much everyone on the planet wants to do. It's write a book. And so, I mean, I didn't really know how to teach people how to write books. I'd just written a lot of books, and I got asked to teach people how to do it on a program. And I went, okay, I have to kind of figure out how to do it. And of course, I hadn't had these long conversations and didn't have to do training. I didn't understand it. But what I really started to notice as I was teaching people was just how the internal dialogue that people had about writing a book. It was like who the hell am I to write a book? I haven't done anything famous. I haven't climbed Mount Everest with one arm tied behind my back. I haven't swum naked across the Pacific Ocean. I'm not an Olympic athlete. I'm not this. And, who really cares about what I've done? So that first thing is who am I? Like very, very big thing. The second thing that comes out is like, well, what have I got to share? And that's really intriguing, because the way I look at it is there's a whole pile of people out there that have got problems of some sort. And some of those people, they want to know what the stuff is that you figured out and you can share. So I wrote my first book was a book on marketing, 101 Ways to Market Your Business. And now I didn't have a marketing qualification. I went to high school. That was it. I had probably no justification to write a book, right, on marketing. But I ran a marketing company, and it was I worked with small business owners, and I got really, really great results with them. And it was, for me, it was really about, all I did was say, well, I'm going to write a book about what's worked with me and my clients and share that, because maybe that will help others. And that was exactly what it's about, because I had all of that imposter syndrome stuff as well when I started speaking, Heidi, and all of a sudden the Telsters of the world were saying, well, you're the marketing guru, come and talk at our conference, talk in 35 cities around Australia. And I'm going, holy crap. And I laugh. I say this, I've waited 20 years for someone to stand up at the back of the room and go, Andrew Griffiths, you're full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. even when I had the idea to write my first book, and the reason I wrote it was because I was getting asked these questions all day long, same questions.
Yeah.
And I went to a few marketing friends of mine and said, look, hey, I'm thinking about writing a book. And, it's a really simple, small business kind of marketing book, because I don't really think there's good ones out there. They're all American or English. I think we need Australian. Yeah. And my friends said, Andrew, you're a nice bloke, but, like, who are you to write a book on marketing?
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate your support.
Thank you. And, of course, when the book arrived, I did go to great lengths to send each of them a copy. And, a little bit of passive aggressiveness goes a long way. They all came back to me. And they all came back to me and said the same thing. They said, wow, it's really simple. I could have written this. And I said, yeah, but you didn't. And I never tried to write a book which said, I've got all the answers. And that's too much pressure. I don't like those people that say they've got all the answers. All I did was write a book that said, hey, I've done this stuff with my small business clients. It's worked for them. This is how they did it. This is what the results are. I hope it works for you. And that took all of that, pressure off me of being the one who has to have all the answers. And so I see so many people that have got such amazing stuff to share. They've figured stuff out. They've got their frameworks and their ideas, and they've just worked stuff out. They just kind of got to get a bit beyond themselves and go, look, there are people who want to hear this. And I can help others. I can solve problems. This book will help my business. All of that kind of stuff. But the things that stop people writing a book are all the same. Same lineup. Things peer review comes into it. If you're a lawyer, lawyers. I've helped a lot of lawyers to write books. Their biggest fear is, oh my God, what are other lawyers going to say? And I go, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah. Exactly.
Your target market, right?
Yeah.
So that's my book writing rave. But the bottom line, write books. It's fabulous. Changes everything, right?
Yeah. Especially during COVID, we want to read. We want to read lots of books.
and Australians are.
Andrew, sorry, can I just say, I'm hearing an echo of me. I don't know if you're hearing an echo of me when I speak, but I don't know how to fix it, everybody. So I'm just calling it out, and I apologize. I can't do anything about it if you're getting an echo. But
let me try and put in some headphones and see if that helps.
No, it's not you. You're not echoing. I'm just echoing.
You might be getting feedback through my end.
Okay.
See if that works.
So, Andrew, you may have answered my next question, but I like to know. I had a guest on last year, Michael Dixon. You probably know him, and he talked about the magical dance between choice and chance that has brought us to where we are today. Has it been a choice? Or has it just been this unfolding of life, these sliding door moments that we feel like we have no control of that have brought you here to what you're doing? What do you think it's been for you?
It's a great question, Heidi. I think for me, the vast majority has been choice. I really do think. I think that there's been many occasions in my life where I could go left or I could go right. Yeah. And I made the choice to go left. Sometimes I made the choice and I went right, and things didn't work out the way that they should, or that I wanted them to or expected them to. But I definitely look at critical moments in my life and go, okay, that was a critical moment. The decision I made then was a conscious decision, and that, of course, the joy of hindsight, when we can look back and do this kind of stuff, makes it a bit easier. But definitely choice for me. I can really say there's 4 or 5 key moments in my life that I made a conscious decision to go in a certain direction, and they certainly shaped everything that happened afterwards, without a doubt.
Yeah. And I think, what's so interesting there's so much right in our world at the moment that we don't have a lot of control over at all. Mm-hmm. Just no control. And that uncertainty and that fear of what's next is really tough. But there are those moments in life that you've talked about, those crossroads that we all come to, and we do have a choice of going left or right. And it's, what is right. We can't see what's going to be at the other end of either of those choices. but we have to make a decision. And that's really tough to make the decision when there are two opportunities for two different paths, when it's so unknown. And I'd love you to perhaps share with us in regards to whether you have an example of that, or just what goes through your head when you're at one of those crossroads and you've got to make a decision, and the decision you could make could be the shite one that just ruins your life or just makes it tricky for the next 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. But making the decision is something you've just got to do anyway, right?
You do. And I mean, I've got big examples of that, and I've got little examples of that.
Yeah.
And I think that probably the biggest example for me was a pivotal moment, and I was about 17. So I had one of those unusual upbringings. I grew up as an orphan. My parents left my sister and I when I was about 6 months old, and she was about 18 months old. And we ended up in, being brought up by this kind of crazy old lady, and in and out of state care and foster families and all kind of stuff. A typical kind of environment that leads to abuse, and you fall through the cracks a little bit, and it's a bit of a predictable path. There was a lot of violence, there was a lot of neglect, and just all that kind of stuff. And my path was going down that. The road I was hoeing was one of alcohol, drugs, crime that was starting to escalate, and that was happening from the age of like 10 or 11 in reality. And there was a certain certainty that comes with that. You find that group of people to hang out with. You're not, your moral kind of boundaries are kind of flexible, I guess, because of circumstance, all that kind of jazz. And I remember there was this moment. It was an incredible moment for me. I was standing at the end of the driveway. I'd long been kind of sleeping on couches and things, and I was waiting for some friends to come and pick me up. And this group of friends, they accepted me. They, all of that stuff, but over the last year or two, everything had started to escalate. The seriousness of the drugs, the amount of drinking, the amount of crime, the violence that was starting to happen. And I remember standing at the end of this driveway and just kind of going, it was, for me, it was an epiphany. It was a very much a spiritual moment. And it was like, okay, this is it. You either turn left and you get the hell out of there and you don't look back, or you turn right and you get in that car. But whatever you do, you got to kind of make that call in the next few minutes, because the guys are going to be here. And I turned left, and I think that I had that. I get asked about this a lot, like, with the child, and I'm giving you this little snapshot of my little childhood. I mean, people say to me, why aren't you pulling the wings off butterflies and, hurting puppies and things, or in jail or in prison? And it was really that moment. I've no doubt that my life would have been very different if I had turned right. All of those guys are either dead, in prison, did horrible things, went on to not have very good lives on that. And was it strength of character? Was it, no, I don't think it was strength of character. I think it was really hard to do that. It was more fear of what was going to happen if I didn't do that. I think, was like fear of what that life would look like if I didn't kind of break away from it, was really the key there. And so for me, over the years, there's been those big pinnacle kind of crossroads where I think I've had to make a decision. And I learned a lot from that decision, because that's what really started me down a much better life. And I became my own person, and I made my own decisions, and have been a very, very independent man all my life as a result of that. But I think I've also learnt to tune into intuition and to listen to that intuition. I think that is such a powerful tool for us as human beings. It's incredible. And the times when I don't listen to my intuition, and you stop listening to it, it goes away, it stops working, it stops, it punishes you in some ways. But how many times do we all know that we're making a mistake? We know we're making a mistake, but we do it. in a relationship, in a business decision, in a job, in a whatever it might be, but we override it by intellectualizing it.
Yeah.
You know,
Overthinking it. Yeah.
overthinking it, over intellectualize it, find
Yeah.
a different way. And I found that as I get older, more and more for me, I'm really tuned into my intuition. I had an intuition coach. How's that, right? Who taught
Oh,
me
wow.
how to really reconnect with my intuition, because that's how much I value it in making decisions in my life. And I tell you, I have a checklist for doing stuff, and it's, do I want to? Have I got the time? Blah 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 blah. And the last thing on the list is, what does my intuition say? And if all of those things are ticks, and the last one is a cross, what my intuition says don't do it, I don't do it. So
Wow.
that's how important it is to me for a decision making tool, and it never is wrong.
So I'm fascinated by that, Andrew. So what I would love to know is, has there been a time for you when you felt that you've lost your intuition and you just haven't been able to rely on it because you're in that real cognitive overthinking? I'm intellectualizing everything because it's whatever it might be. And like, has that been oh shit, I'm not listening to my gut anymore, and therefore what do I need to do to go back to doing that and listening in?
Absolutely.
What's happened to that?
Definitely had those moments, and most of them kind of, I guess, they tied into probably a bit of overwhelm, too much going on, those periods of madness where it's just like everything is kind of crazy and getting crazier, where when you're in perhaps uncharted territory and you really feel that you're out of your depth and you're just kind of winging it and you are trying to figure it out as you go, so you kind of don't really listen to that intuition. So there's been plenty of those times. There's plenty of those times. But what made me really appreciate it was that whole fact of literally kind of sitting down and going, okay, let me look back at my life and look at the biggest mistakes that I made. And I looked at them in business or relationships or whatever. I knew, as I said a minute ago, that I was making that mistake when I made it, but I still did it. And I go, why did I do that?
You ignored it. You ignored it, right?
I ignored it. I had that feeling. I had that intuitive feeling that this was not right. That person was not right, or something was wrong, or that situation was not right. And I over intellectualized it by going, oh, but it's going to be a great deal, or she's a nice lady, or this is going to, rah. I stopped listening to my intuition, and of course things didn't work out, and when it didn't work out, I kind of almost got the I told you so. Shut up. But then that's when I really started to realize how important intuition is, and I realized through appreciating the value of it that I needed to get better at listening to it, and so I started to spend more time just tuning into my intuition, learning to understand what it actually feels like. Because for me, my intuition, there is a definite feeling. There is it's a bit hard to describe what it is, but I can feel when something's not. I meet someone, there's a situation, there's a whatever it might be. I have a physical sensation more than a cosmic ray of sunshine kind of strikes me. There's this almost like a gut feeling that tells me that. But I've learnt to, with the help of the guy that was intuition coach, to identify that a little bit more. So that's what that feels like. Even this, and I know that's a little bit out there, and some people go, yeah, seriously, dude. But this is my experience, and it has worked. I just believe in it. I just think that I believe it, and I trust in it.
And you're happy to say it out loud.
Absolutely. And I believe that human bodies, we are so extraordinary as a body. It actually kind of makes sense that you've got this kind of warning system, this whole little kind of alert thing in there, which is, someone's watching me. Well, how the hell do we know that, right? How the hell do we know when someone's watching us? I mean, I'm a commercial diver by trade. I spent a lot of my life underwater at the beginning of my career. And
that was your first business, right?
That was my first business, and that was my trade. It was, teaching people to dive and also recovering boats and doing recovery work on boats and stuff like that in Sydney Harbour and off the beaches and in the Hawkesbury River, which is a beautiful place to dive.
Yeah.
Very, very clear, crystal clear water in the Hawkesbury River.
Oh,
I think the visibility in the Hawkesbury.
Fish there.
I think the visibility in the Hawkesbury is negative. It's not even it's negative.
We're at -10 today. Yeah.
And every time a boat sank there, it was always like in 150 feet of water, and it was always cold, pitch black, and just horrible. But intuition certainly, saved my life a couple of times, and I must say that the times that I could have died in a bad situation underwater, I knew it before it happened. Everything about my intuition was screaming, but I said, again, intellectualize it. No, it's fine. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Rah, rah, rah. So anyway, powerful tool.
It's a very powerful tool, and I thank you for sharing it. I would probably love to look up your intuition coach. I think that I've never even heard that is a thing, but I mean, I'm a great believer in intuition, and I feel at different times I've lost my intuition, and not lost, but I've ignored it in a way, like you said. I was feeling it and I ignored it, and so I'm fascinated to hear that. Of course, everybody experiences that. We all do, but if we can just trust, it's that trust, isn't it? Just trust in it. No matter what the brain is saying, trust in it, because I would imagine 99.9% of the time, what we feel physically about that intuition feeling is right. And I'd love to hear for those of you who are tuning in now, or maybe when you're watching the replay, if you've ever had experiences where you have felt this feeling of intuition on an experience, and you've gone with it, and thank God I went through that, because the alternative would have been a terrible one. I mean, so if you could write it in the comments, please share it with us, because I think it's a really fascinating subject. Andrew, you spoke about that crossroads that you had at that time when you were 17, with either getting in the car with those guys or not, and the path that would have led you on. It was one of those crossroads that we've talked about. Intuition was what made you go one way and not the other way. But what I'm interested in is, you talked a little bit about the background that you had, which is not like most of us here. And I think that when someone looks at you and your profile, you've written 14 books and you speak across the globe and you've worked with the biggest organizations, they would just think, oh, that's one of those lucky guys who's always had everything handed to him. And but of course, that's not the case, is it? And no. I would imagine, I don't know, do sometimes when that comes up, does it make you a bit shitty that people presume that about you? Sorry, I'm not sure if that's the right question. It's certainly not in the show run, is it?
No, I mean, it doesn't make me shitty. There's an assumption, I mean, like, I get it, that there's an assumption that if you've written these books and you've done this stuff, that you're naturally successful. I mean, look, the biggest assumption was always, I lived in Cairns for 30 years. I presented in Melbourne and Sydney all the time. People always said to me, oh, where do you live, Sydney or Melbourne? There was just an assumption of certain things, right? When I'd say Cairns, they'd go, eh? And they go, oh, you sit on the Esplanade and write your books under a coconut tree, right? And you go, yeah.
Just like that.
Of course you do. I don't. I mean, I didn't really talk about it a great deal. To me, it was always my background, not because it was like, oh my God, it was so painful and horrible that I didn't want to talk about it. I honestly just didn't think it really mattered. I certainly wasn't living in it. I'd certainly had moved beyond that, and I knew that I had to as well, because I knew how easy it was to be stuck in victim mode, and very easy to become poor, pitiful me, and blah blah blah. And I saw a few people, like I lived with this old lady who was an amazing old woman. She took us after, or my parents left us with her. I don't really know all the ins and outs of it. It's all one of those kind of things that she's dead and all the rest of it. But No, she was an incredible woman. She was born in 1896, and she was 70 years old when she took us in, 74 years old or something like that, when she took a 6-month-old baby and an 18-month-old little toddler in,
Wow.
which is pretty incredible when you think about it.
Yeah.
But she was stark raving mad as well. Like, she had full-blown Alzheimer's and dementia and all things, particularly in that period. But it was in the 60s, and the welfare, you know, it was a different set of rules then. It wouldn't happen now. You know, well, unfortunately, it kind of does, but it was less likely to happen. But I look at that and kind of go, I saw her. She had a really tough life. She lost 3 husbands in 3 different wars. She lost her father, and I think it was either 3 or 4 uncles, 3 or 4 brothers in World War One. One war, she lost, you know, like 7 or 8 male, one direct, you know, and you know, and I saw she was bitter and angry and her physically misshapen, and that loss. And look, you know, hard not to have that, but I saw how that anger had really turned her, you know, it had twisted her physically as much as it had mentally. And again, I don't want to judge. I kind of get, you know, how would I cope, you know, if that had happened to me. But I also know how dangerous hanging on to that kind of stuff is, and it's horrible to have that loss, but it can also, it can really turn you inside out and make you, you know, not kind of be that right kind of person that you want to be. And so I think I was lucky at an early age to realize that I didn't want to be like that, and to realize that I could become like her. I could be bitter and twisted, and I could be, you know, pissed that, you know, how could my parents leave me? How could they abandon me? How could people do the things that they had done? And the whole thing. And so I made that conscious decision not to. But I also do feel, in all honesty, Heidi, that I am a really optimistic person. I think I have the optimism gene, and I do believe that there is such a thing as an optimism gene, because, you know, like, I've had plenty of stuff has happened in my life, and I always seem to be optimistic. I seem to be resilient, and I don't think it's that I'm any smarter, or certainly not any smarter, certainly not anything else. It just, I think I bounce back from things, and I'm just a positive kind of a person. And sometimes people don't like that as well. I mean, I have people that come up to me and say, you know, kind of, you should be miserable, you should be pissed off, you should be this, you know, considering your life. You go, wow, should I? What am I? I don't hate everyone. What's wrong with me? You know, it's like, oh my God, where are those butterflies? Damn it! I want to pull some wings off some butterflies now. You know, to do that. And I think there's a home base that most of us have. You know, I mean, again, whether it's, I mean, my sister died when I was 33. She was 35, had a heart attack, and died very suddenly. And she was a world to me. My greatest fear in life was to lose Wendy, to have anything happen. We'd been together. We grew up in this ridiculous life, and to lose her so suddenly was horrendous. And you know, but you know, I could be bitter and twisted about that, but I certainly grieved, and I certainly cried for a hell of a long time, and it was certainly extraordinarily painful, and I miss her every day. But I also kind of went, well, you know, she gave me this amazing lesson, and she taught me that I could survive the worst of things happening to me, and I have, and I've thrived. Sometimes you've got to find that positive in a hard situation, and you've got to reframe it in your mind. That's been the big lesson for me, Heidi, without a doubt. A really great example of this is, I mean, I never met my mother, but I met my father. I met my father when I was around 22 or 23 or something like that, and I got the phone call saying, hey, you know, hey, Luke, I'm your father. Hey, Andrew, I'm your father. And it's like, wow, okay. So we arranged for him to come up from Melbourne to Sydney. I was in Sydney at the time, and met him, and like, we're driving home from the airport, and the first thing he really did was borrow some money off me. And the next thing we did was we went to the bottle shop, and next thing I know was this guy's just drunk all the time. and it was like, this guy was saying to me, I love you, all this stuff, and I'm going, dude, I don't even know you, and but I do know that I'm like, whatever, I was 24, I'm an adult, I've got a successful business, I'm doing what I'm doing. I know what I don't need in my life, and what I don't need is a drunken father. I don't need an alcoholic in my life at this stage, and or at any stage. So if you want to build up some kind of a relationship, great, but you got to be sober. It's the only way this is going to work. And I never heard from him again, and I'm completely okay with that. I don't have any issue with that. Or, and again, people say to me, "But he's your father. You should have tried more." And I go, "No, there's a difference between donating sperm and being a father." In reality, there wasn't a whole lot more that he did in the situation, and that's okay. That's life goes on. But reframe it. But I never met my mother, and I remember I did like a therapy session with a lady, and this was a fundamental, again, one of those pivotal moments in my life. And she said, "Okay, tell me who had the most influence on you in your life." And the reason I went to this lady is because this old Swiss friend of mine, really good friend of mine, who was in his 80s, said he grew up in World War II and blah, blah, blah. And he said, "You need to see this woman. She's fabulous." So I went, "Okay, be great." I only went because he wouldn't stop nagging me to go and see her. So I went to see her. He said to me, who's had the biggest impact on you in your life? And I just unconsciously said, "My mother." And I went, "Oh, that's kind of strange. Never met her. Don't know what she looks like. I wouldn't know anything. I know nothing about her. Well, that's kind of weird." Anyway, she started talking, and she's, tell me about your mum, that story, rah, rah. And my mother, this was kind of pieced together a bit through information at the time, but she had ended up with my father, and she got pregnant. She had 2 kids out of wedlock. So in 1960s Perth, or Melbourne, sorry, that wasn't a good thing. Her family disowned her, like she was in high school, basically. You can imagine, it wasn't a good thing to do. Wasn't a very good relationship, and things were breaking down. And, and we're talking about it. And so she gave me an understanding. What does that life really look like? What do you think she'd be like? I was at that stage probably 10 years older than she was. And I'm going, oh my God, I wouldn't be responsible enough to have a child at my age. And I'm a responsible guy. Imagine being this poor young girl with this man, and it's a kind of not a good relationship. And, you've got all of a sudden 2 kids, you've got no family support because your family don't want to know you because you've done the wrong thing. Maybe, and there's an old lady who lives just up the road who looks for all intensive purposes like Mrs. Doubtfire. And maybe leaving your 2 kids there with this lady is lovely, and disappearing is an act of love instead of an act of parental neglect.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't matter whether it was or not. I don't actually care whether they were just druggies and abandoned us or whatever. But it was a better story, and it was a better way of framing it. And I do believe, though, that it was an act of love. And I kind of get it, because it made me go, instead of harboring this deep resentment towards my mother for abandoning us, it was like, well, I kind of get that. I understand it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's any of that. But reframing what, those situations, I've always felt that to be, it's a good situation, because we get so used to telling ourselves a story that's the negative, that's the someone done me wrong story, the this and that, and you go, well, if I tell a different story, and does it really matter if it's right or wrong? If it's a better outcome that makes me not eat myself up and not feel hatred and anger towards someone. So I just try and do that in every difficult situation in my life. It's like, look, the old lady, people say to me, you must have hated her, because she stabbed me with scissors. I slept on a mattress in the yard for the first 10 years of my life. I was not as soon as it got dark as a little kid, I was put outside on this. She hated men. So I was a man, so she hated me. The dog slept inside. I never understood that. I'd wave at the dog as the dog's coming in and I'm going out. And literally, I just had a little blanket on this mattress and it was freaking really, really scary. And it was,
Oh my God.
Predator Perth, Predator Perth. She would just do horrible things. She fractured my skull, beat me up all the time with lumps of wood, rah, rah. And you go, surely you must hate her. And I go, no, not at all. I get it. I understand her. I understand the pain. I understand what she had to live with. She wasn't angry with me. Mate, for God's sake, she took me in. She took us both in. She did something she was no obligation to do. She was just angry with the world. All right. Yeah. She was just had a bad run. And she was a teacher for me to not end up like her. So to feel sorry for her and to be understanding of her is far better than kind of going, that freaking horrible old hag. What a monster. What a this. How it's like, I got abducted by another crazy. I got a lot of crazy ladies in my life, This lady wigged out one day, and long story short, she came and dragged my sister away, and we were in this police hostage situation. All I remember, I was maybe 4 or 5, with the police and the ambulance, and the guy on the bullhorn going, don't hurt the children. And this lady's got a knife to my throat, and this horrible hostage situation's involved in the streets of Perth. And she just had a complete meltdown of some sort. And again, you look at that and go, for me in my life, to be brutally honest, Heidi, that was a Tuesday, right? That was just a Tuesday. That's the way that kind of world looked like. Oh my gosh. But again, do you go, oh my God, what a horrible human being, No, she just was a poor lady who just whatever happened, and she couldn't have kids. She had a meltdown. All this stuff. People lose their shit all the time. It's harder to be forgiving of people in that situation and to understand. But it's better for you to do that, in my opinion, if you can do it. And I get that it's hard to do that, but I find that the people who have got who have the most bitter and twisted generally have the least reason to be. You talk to a Holocaust survivor and those kind, they're actually kind of pretty happy people. They let stuff go. They kind of, from my limited experience, people have been through a lot of grief are actually have figured out, hopefully at some stage, you got to let it go. Otherwise it'll destroy you.
Yeah, it would. And for those of you who are listening, you will know that I had named the episode tonight turning adversity into advantage. I actually had no idea how much adversity Andrew has gone through turned into advantage. Like, hey, I must have tapped into my intuition, Andrew, to know that this is the right name for your episode without doubt, because
it was perfect.
Yeah, but like truly, and I'm sure you've had many people say this to you, but I mean, seriously, the way you have turned adversity into advantage and the mindset you have on that, it's truly remarkable. I mean, don't ever, I don't think you should ever, dull that down, because it takes an enormous amount of courage and really shifting things in your mind to be able to turn experiences like that and forgive. And it is that forgiveness and acceptance definitely that you have done. And I am blown away by it. Thank you for sharing all of that. It's incredible. Yes, you're right, Magdalene. His approach is remarkable and inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's better than the alternative for me.
I know.
And when it's you, the way I always use as an example here, and it's funny because I've just mentioned it a bit in the last day or two on a couple of interviews I was doing, was in this household when I was living with this crazy old lady, we had the Christmas tree up every year. We had the Christmas tree up all year long. We never took it down, right? So the lights were on, the Christmas tree was on all year round. And I would go to friends' place when I was at school, and we'd go into their house and I go, where's your Christmas tree? And they'd look at me kind of go, we only have it up at Christmas.
It's May. We don't have it up in May.
And I go, oh, geez, I'm sorry. I didn't know. It'll be okay. It was almost like, things will get better. And it was like, it's what You know,
Yeah,
it's
correct.
that
Or
it's that
relative, isn't it? Yeah.
it's all relative. But your question early on at the beginning, was it choice or was it something else? All of these for me were choices,
Mm.
and I think if anything, my fortune comes in my ability to be able to make a choice. Like even with my dad, and I get that some people will go, "That's a tough call that you made with your father,"
Mm.
but it was a choice,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I listened to my intuition, and to be honest, I honestly felt that was the right decision to make.
Yeah.
But there's circumstance often has I think I mentioned it when we were kind of chatting about what to chat about. I had this great experience called my Pretty Woman experience, and this to me sums up the whole concept of choice. And do you mind if I just share this story?
It was my next question. I wanted to know about the Pretty Woman experience. Please share it all
I've
now.
got to lead into it. So as I said, I was a commercial diver by trade. I got decompression sickness, putting in some pontoons on the Great Barrier Reef. And decompression sickness is just like nitrogen bubbles lodging somewhere in your body. And I had a really bad case. So I was evacuated and in a recompression chamber. And, it was life or death kind of scenario. Anyway, I was working for a Japanese shipping company and big, giant company. And I was 6 months in recuperation and hospital and all that kind of jazz. And I came out and I was told that I wouldn't be able to dive again. So I lost my my ability to be a commercial diver because there's too much risk of me getting decompression sickness again.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, so we're a big company. What do you want to do? We'll retrain you. And again, I was a bit bitter and twisted with them because I felt that they were responsible. They'd pushed me to get this project done, and I was in charge. And I did it. I could have said no, but you look for someone to blame in these situations. Anyway, so I said, look, I don't know, maybe drive a boat or do something like that. They said, no, we think you'd crash too many boats if you drove a boat. So that was a bit brutal. And they said, you've got a big mouth. We'll put you into sales and marketing. So I've ended up in sales and marketing for this cruise ship company that takes people out to the Great Barrier Reef. And I didn't really want to be there. I kind of felt, I felt, a bit pushed in there. I felt resentful. I felt all these things. Anyway, I'm just turning up. And my big thing was, I don't want to be some corporate suit. I'm not going to wear a suit. I was a diver, right? I had a beard and earrings and ponytail. And, that was the commercial diver uniform.
Of course.
At the time. And so anyway, I've ended up in the sales department, and by a strange twist of fate, my immediate boss got appendicitis, and he was supposed to be going to a big trade show in Sydney. So this was all from Cairns, and he couldn't make it. He's in hospital. So the CEO of the company said, okay, you've got to come with me because you're the only other sales guy.
Yeah.
So I've gone, okay, insert eye roll. Gone down to this trade show. Now, this trade show is the most important trade show for tourism operators in each year. People come from around the world and they buy your products. So they would come and contract us to buy our cruises. So in many respects, the future of the company really depended on our success at this trade show.
Yeah.
It's not good, right? That's not good. So anyway, I'm at our little booth. And I had the worst attitude. I refused. I was wearing a flannel, Westies shirt and a pair of jeans, and I looked like a slob. Again, beard, earrings. I look like a grub. And I had and to really make it nice, I had a bad attitude as well. So, people would walk by and I go kind of snarl at them. So I'm in this little booth with my CEO, and I could just see him as the day was going on. He was getting furious. He was like. And I was acting like a petulant little child in reality. Anyway, at some stage, he just goes. That's it. He's gone. He's just given up. And we've got tomorrow to come back. 2 more days of this trade show. He's gone. And I've literally started to head back to the hotel at the end of the day. And as I was walking up from Darling Harbour up the hill to wherever it was that I was staying, I started to wander along George Street and it just hit me like this amazing thing of like going, what the hell are you doing? Like the biggest shipping company in the world has said, we'll retrain you, we'll help you, don't worry, we're going to make sure that you are on the right path. We get this. They'd accepted responsibility. It was all there. And here I was going, wow, I'm going to get the sack. I deserve to get the sack. And I was wandering around the city, and I ended up in David Jones, of all places. And I think it was, wandering around there, and I was really upset. And this old guy in the suit department came up to me. And at the time when people used to come up to you and ask you if you needed help. And this guy could tell that I was really unhappy and sad. And he just literally came up to me and said, "Are you okay?" And because I was distraught. And I just blurted out. I just did this, "Oh my God, this has happened," and blah, blah, blah. I'm an idiot. I've made the biggest mistake. I'm going to get the sack. My life's in ruins, blah, blah, blah. And he just sat there and, listened and listened and listened and listened. And then I remember he just said to me, so what are you going to do about it? And I went, well, there's nothing. What can I do? I've ruined it. I've destroyed any situation. And he said, well, you could show your boss that you're serious. And I went, well, what do you mean? Next thing, right, this is in the main floor. It's like 6 o'clock of an evening. David Jones is closing. This guy has organized for me. He's fitting me out for a suit. He's got someone upstairs who's come down to do adjustments. I was getting a haircut in David Jones. One of the ladies that work there literally is giving me a haircut and shaving me in the main part of David Jones. So this was in the year 1992 or something like that. Honestly, I didn't even have the money for the suit. I didn't have all the money. I had to send him. I gave him every money I had. And of course, during it, I realized, man, this is the best sales pitch I've ever heard. Anyway, I left David Jones with a briefcase, a suit, a haircut, wow. and I've gone back to my hotel room and I've gone, oh my God, I look amazing. And I felt this strength and this confidence and it was, and anyway, next morning I've gone downstairs and I went down like 5 o'clock, I think, and I'm waiting in the lobby for my CEO. And he walked by me 3 times before he recognized me. And he came up to me and he just, and we are great friends ever since then. It's a really close friend. And he said to me, his jaw just dropped and he said, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I said, Terry, I know that I completely buggered up yesterday. Please forgive me. Give me one more chance. Just give me today to prove that I can make this work. And he pulled out of his pocket a type fax that had come through, which was my dismissal. This is I've been sacked.
Oh, wow.
And my ticket to go back to Cairns that morning.
Wow.
And totally deserved.
Yep.
And I begged him to give me one day. Please just, and he said, look, takes a lot more to make you successful than to put a flash suit on and have a haircut and lose a couple of earrings, he said, that's not enough to convince me that this is going to work.
Yeah.
So, and rightly so,
yeah.
We went back to the trade show, now everything changed. We sold like $8 million worth of cruises that day. I then spent the next day, it was a huge success. I spent the next 5 years as their international sales manager, traveling around the world, 9 months of the year in every pocket of the world for this giant shipping company. Left that business after 5 years, started my own marketing company, wrote a book about marketing, wrote 14 more books, ended up on a Wednesday night talking to Heidi Dening, and that moment.
Yeah.
What was again, and
on those crossroads, right?
My life is about crossroads, and that's why I really, I don't know, like what happens to someone there? What was that moment? Was that intuition? Yeah. Was that fortune? Was that a reality? I don't really know, but I know my life would be very different if I didn't make that decision. I think easily one of the greatest opportunities of my life happened at that moment in David Jones. And I kind of.
But you like this little moment that could have been so different, Andrew. But there's something in you that I don't know what it's. The intuition. I think so. that is just steering you on those little moments that are so full on that, I mean, I think you've perhaps had more than most that could truly be have you seen the movie Sliding Doors with?
I have.
Gwyneth
Paltrow. Yeah.
It's like those sliding door moments, right? That is truly a sliding door moment. Another one you've just described. But you somehow, thankfully, can just feel what's inside and have the courage, because really when you've got a ponytail and earrings and you're in your flannel, you don't really care about life. I'm imagining in that, like, it's like, bugger it, whatever. I love
I'm not
that.
going to become a suit.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. All you bloody suits. I love that Magdalene here said that when you were describing that, she said it was Aura Northern Beaches look that you were describing.
Yeah, exactly. It was exactly Northern Beaches look for sure.
But those little moments that you have turned some kind of crossroad into your advantage, and that is really admirable. Thank you so much for sharing it.
You're so welcome. Even choosing to write that first book when it would have been so easy not to. Yeah. Like they're the things, and it's such, I don't know, this topic of resilience, because I get asked about this a lot, and I speak a bit about this, not as much as you, I think, Heidi, but it comes up when people find out my story, because it's not really, I don't really lead with this as a story as well, because it's like, you become like Stephen Bradbury. Like how many times has the poor bugger, I love him to death, but the poor bugger's got to tell the story about everyone else falling over and I got the gold. And you look at it and go, I got a friend of mine who's a speaker, and his name's Paul Hockey, and he's literally got one arm, and he climbed Mount Everest. He was the first guy to climb the north face or southern face of Mount Everest with one arm, and he climbed it twice. The first time he got within 200 meters and his lungs filled with blood, and his Sherpa said, you can get to the top, but you'll be dead, in the first 50 meters coming back. So you decide what you want to do, because people, and he said he really contemplated doing it, going
it. Just to do it, to tick it off.
I know. And he said, no, then he kind of realized maybe that's not a good idea. But anyway, he went and did it the next year, and he was successful on the climb. And he said, that's all anyone wants to hear about is Mount Everest, right? And he said, but he was a 3-week-old baby, and the doctor picked him up and felt a lump under his arm. How lucky is that? They did a biopsy. It was cancer, and they amputated his arm as a 3-week-old baby. And he said, really, Mount Everest, it was hard work, but the challenge, the toughest thing was being, you're at the back of the class with all the other weird kids. He's the one-arm kid. There's the fat kid. There's the smelly kid. There's the foreign kid that doesn't speak the language. He said that was hard. That was horrible. That was, he said, years of being that person was tough. This guy went on, he was a martial art, like a 10th Dan karate guy. He went to Japan and became a martial arts instructor in Japan with one arm. He used to ride this giant motorbike as a courier in Sydney with one arm. He said, all of that stuff no one wants to know about. They just want to hear that. It's like the Rolling Stones. You got to sing stuff.
You've got to. Yeah, I was just about to say, it's like Cold Chisel always having to sing K-Sound, even if they're really sick of it.
You just got to tell your greatest hits. So I don't necessarily talk a lot about mine in my speaking, because I want to talk about other stuff as well, and it feels like it's so much in my past that it's, I don't know, there's so much I'm going forward. But in saying that, Heidi, sure, I love to talk about it, because I do know that it helps others, and I know that it's inspiring. And it's good to share those stories, because, people with writing books, with just overcoming challenges, learning to listen to your intuition, being at a crossroad in your life and kind of going, well, how do I choose? Which way do I go? Do I go left? Do I go right? Sometimes the decision isn't that easy, is it? It just go, well, both options kind of look okay, or both options look bad. But I still got to choose that. I've got to decide which way I'm going to go. So,
well, I've got to say to you, Andrew, that I know that we could have sat here for this hour that we're already at, and I know I could have asked you a billion marketing questions and learnt so much, because I know that you are an incredibly wise person in regards to that, and I would have learnt stacks. There's no doubt, but I've also like for you to be telling the stories you've told tonight, which you is saying that you don't often do, it's really been helpful for me, and I'm sure for everybody who's listening, just about, taking that adversity and turning it into advantage, which we've called the episode. Thankfully, we did call it that because that's exactly what you've done in your life. But truly, it's a gift. And, whether you want to lead with it or not, I tell you right now that for you sharing that tonight is a gift to all of us who are listening. And I appreciate it so much.
Really welcome. And thank you for framing it like that for me, because I think sometimes it's easy for me to forget that that it's good to share your story, and to others get a great deal out of it. It is nice to be reminded of that, Heidi. So thank you.
And the feeling of not being alone in adversity. I think that's a big thing. Is it one thing? And before I go to our last question tonight, I do want to say to everybody that how this has happened tonight is that I was referred this amazing book. Oh, look who it's by, Andrew Griffiths, by the wonderful Karen Ma. And I don't know if she was going to be on tonight or not. She was going to try. I'm just going to quickly put it on so you can all see it a bit better. It's called Someone Has to Be the Most Expensive. Why Not Make It You? And it is truly an amazing book. And for anybody who is in business, I can't recommend this book enough. But what I wanted to say to you, Andrew, because we weren't doing a business book promotion tonight, despite the fact that I have, you probably can't see, but I've got so many pink highlights through my book. And then you sent me another one. You sent me another one, and now I've got two, which is the best. But I was also thinking about this, as a business, someone has to be the most expensive. Why not make it you? But what was coming up for me as well is someone has to be a great human. Why not make it you? Like we as humans, not even in business, we have so much value that we often hide away in. And why not make it you to share that with the world? And I don't know, there was just something in your book, because I know it is about business, about this theme, but there was something coming up to me about, even if people who are watching tonight don't have a business, this is a book to read as well, because we are all valuable in this world, whether we're a business or a person, and what we've got to offer. And sometimes we don't shine that light. That's what I also feel comes from your book. And I don't know if there was any that you've ever thought of that, but that came up.
No, not really. But I say not really, but yes. I'm a firm believer. If you want to grow a better business, grow a better person. And I'm so much, personal growth and development is something that I've been very big on all my life. And I was very lucky when I bought my first business at 17, going on 18, when I knew everything, all the answers. I had a couple of very, very wise, one guy in particular was this wise guy. He was really old. He was 35 at the time, right? But he was a wise old soul. And I was a 17, 18-year-old kid with all the answers. And this guy was just fabulous at showing me how to be a better human being and really living that, living to that. And he would kind of surreptitiously kind of give me a copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People. And, just, you might find this interesting, Andrew, and I would watch how he interacted with people, and how respectful he was, and how kind he was, and how considerate he was. And I really, really liked that. I really, really liked that in him. And I think a lot of who I am was really down to him, because, I didn't really know who the hell I was. Yet I saw how he was with other people, and that respectfulness. And I went, wow, I really like the way that he does that. And I learned a lot from him. And he's a wild man of Papua New Guinea. He lived in New Guinea for most of his life, married to this New Guinean lady, a big scar on his face where she'd speared him when he did the wrong thing once. And the spear had gone right through. So he was a pretty, he was an
I wish we
interesting
could do
kind of
that
a
in
guy.
Australia. God almighty, I could spear my husband a few times a week,
That's right. In PNG, it was totally acceptable. Oh, no, John did the wrong thing. Yeah, speared it. Yeah, no, that's appropriate. And it's like, really? I guess again, sometimes it's having those people around us who can perhaps kind of guide us, share their story, share their experience that help us get there. But he was very good in helping me to be better as a person, which helped me in my business.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the challenge that I see these days in business is there's so much talk about scaling and hustling and blah, 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 that irritates the hell out of me. To be brutally honest, I think, you want a great business, be a great person. And you've got to spend as much time on personal growth as on business growth. And if you do the two, I tend to find that they look after each other. And that's a part of my philosophy to doing business.
And I wonder then, bringing me to the final question for tonight, it is the Wine and Wisdom show, which you have given us a whole lot of tonight. But when you think back over your lifetime, with all the different adversities you've had and all the amazing successes you've had, who was it and what was it? What was the piece of advice that you got that has really impacted you the most going forward? Who gave it to you, and why was it so impactful for you?
It's a great question, and for me, it's a strange person who gave me this advice. This was an old guy, and who I knew, and he used to. He was a criminal basically, and he used to collect money from the brothels in King's Cross, and his name was George, and he was tough as nails. He was terrifying and amazingly lovely at the same vein. So through one of my foster parents at the time, he was related to someone in there, and I just remember I was scared of him because he was a scary old guy at the time. But he had a little daughter who was like he would have been in his 60s, and he had like a 5 or 6 year old daughter, and I remember how beautiful he was with her, and I always remember him saying, and he would sit me down, and he knew my background, and he would tell me, he was part of the reason that I think I hit the straight and narrow, because he told me what that life was like, and he would say, that's the road you're on. You think if you're going to go down that road, make sure you're really good at it, because you're going to end up in jail, you're going to end up dead, rah. But I remember him saying to me, if you've got a problem, you've got to front it. And it seems like such simple advice and such simple wisdom, and almost like, that's kind of cute, good on you, hitman, but it's so true. We live in a world, and it's hard to confront our problems. It's hard to address them. It's hard to really, to honestly deal with them. I don't find it any easier today than I did, back then when there are issues. But I do realize that there's a bigger wisdom behind that, and whatever, front your problems means. For me, it really meant, listen to my intuition more. It meant, being my own man. It meant, knowing my values that I live to and making sure that I don't do anything that's outside of that value set. It means going, okay, this is not happening the way I want it to. It's up to me to do something about it. And it was really valuable advice. And because I was a bit scared of him as well, I kind of listened a bit extra hard. And of course, he's long since dead. But I often think about the conversations that I had with him, and just how, this rough as guts old guy, tough as nails, who would, he would shoot you in a heartbeat if it warranted it. There'd be no conversations. He just had that look on his face, to sit down and just look me in the eye and kind of, you got a problem, you front it.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, George. It's like, Okay. Yeah, that was a big piece of my
Yeah.
what. Yeah, I think that had an impact on me
Yeah.
in many ways.
Sure.
Mm.
Oh, it's a great piece of wisdom. And despite how scary it would have been to get it from him at the time, perhaps with the dangerous look he had in his eyes, I can see how that, if we all face our problems seriously, rather than just trying to ignore them and put them aside, just get on with it and move forward, it would be helpful. I mean, I'm certainly not the greatest at doing that, but it is hard. Yeah. Yeah. Andrew, I can't tell you. I mean, we have gone way over time, and it doesn't matter to me at all. But I'm very grateful for you to giving all that time. We've still got lots of people on the line, so I know that people have really been completely enthralled with your storytelling, which is not just storytelling; it's actual life story, of course. I don't mean that in a fiction kind of way, but thank you for sharing all your wisdom, for being so honest and transparent and vulnerable with the stories that you've shared with us tonight, even though it's not what you mainly do. I definitely appreciate that, because I've certainly learned a lot in regards to that. And for anybody who is wanting to find out more about what Andrew does and to even purchase this unbelievable book, I'm going to put all that in the comments after the show, so you'll be able to click and have a look better then. But thank you, Andrew. It's been wonderful to talk to you tonight. I wish you all the best this year, especially with all the PR coming around your incredible 14th book. Amazing. Blown away by that.
Thank you, Heidi. I really enjoyed chatting too, and thank you for having the courage yourself to let this conversation go. And I don't think we ever wanted it to be a book talk or about. It wasn't a promotional thing for my book. It was a conversation. No. It was a good conversation, and it was a conversation that I really thoroughly enjoyed having. And so thank you for letting it go where it needed to go.
Yeah, no, it did definitely. All right, thank you, everybody. It's lovely to see you here tonight, or when you're watching the replay. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. For those of you who love the whole idea of having a chat with somebody, I'm not going to tell you who, but who is doing incredible work in this world around animals and how our climate and the impact that is having on animals. Just going to give you a little bit of curiosity there. Please join us in 2 weeks. But thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone, for being online. And I look forward to seeing you all again in 2 weeks. Good night.